Hello, everyone, and welcome back to FinTech Festival India's Bengaluru Micro Experience. We are back on your screens with our next session, where we will be discussing streamlining financial compliance and risk mitigation with artificial intelligence. Moderating this panel, we have with us Mr. Mohan Bhatia, who is the author of Banking 4.0, the Industrialized Bank of Tomorrow, who is joined by Mr. Srikanth Parthasarathy, Vice President of Product with Signzy. We were also expecting Mr. Amit Sharma from Kia.ai to join us for this panel, but due to some unfortunate circumstances, he had to opt out from here. But nonetheless, this is going to be a great panel discussion for us, a great dialogue for us. And with that said, I would like to hand over the dialogue to Mr. Mohan Bhatia to take it forward. Mr. Mohan, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Amit. So let me introduce myself. My name is Mohan Bhatia. I got more than 20 years of experience. I worked with Reserve Bank of India, with Life Insurance Corporation, with Infosys, Oracle, Wipro, and now I'm working with the Institute of Actuaries of India. The thing is, I have actually authored this book, Banking 4.0, the Industrialized Bank of Tomorrow, where we actually are talking about what is going to happen to the technology and processes in the next decade. So this is what I have made an attempt to write about. If you look at what is happening around, this entire world is actually getting digitized. The environment in which financial services firms are operating, it is changing completely. Customers have changed their addresses. Customers now are residing in cloud. They are residing at e-commerce portal, and they are residing in mobile applications. Another thing which is happening actually is that movement of funds and payments have become decentralized, complex, customized, digitized, and the real time. The third thing which is happening is that banks and financial services institutions, now they actually are working in the low interest rate regime. They are where there is a very limited possibility of growing their interest and income and other things. So what financial services firms they are doing is they actually are discovering and adopting the new ways of servicing their customers, and they actually are trying to embed themselves they actually are embedding themselves in the customer journey, and they are trying to embed themselves into the e-commerce and into the various other digital platforms and other things. So we all have this. We all have heard this famous quote from Einstein: "No problem can be solved at the same level of intelligence with which it is created." So to manage the customers in real time, to manage application and machine through which now customers are coming to deliver digital services, financial services firms are industrializing technology and processes. They are industrializing technology so that they are able to manage applications as well as machines. So only industrialized technology can, only AI supported technology can manage the machines and applications. So financial services firms are embedding AI in their technology and processes, and aspiration is to build the all-pervasive enterprise-wide AI layer. So in my book, what I've done is we have identified the Industrialized Bank of Tomorrow. We has got these 6 engines of industrialization and innovation. One is this all-pervasive sustainable investment in the industrialization and innovation. It has to adopt the agile technology and process. It has to adopt digital experience. It has to provide digital experience. It has to industrialize data. Banks are building, or financial services are building, firms are building AI corpus and services, and they are building all pervasive enterprise-wide intelligence into technology and processes to deliver risk management, compliance, financial crime management, and other things. So each of the engine, what we have identified in the book, has got a feedback mechanism. It actually should get into a self-sustainable so that it can build the virtuous circle of growth and profitability for the financial services firm. In the book, I have also identified that for the banking 4.0, there needs to be framework, basically a framework to help bank 4.0. What I'm calling it actually as a 3.0 frameworks need to be built, which are the AML 3.0 or the risk finance compliance framework they need to be built. These are AML 3.0 framework, financial crime 3.0 framework, credit risk 3.0, ORM, etc. So underlying theme among all the framework is to build on the agile technology, to provide digital experience and to provide the enterprise-wide banking AI. So this is basically the background that financial services firms are industrializing, financial services firms are innovating, they are making themselves ready for the changes which the customers have brought in, the changes which financial services sector has brought in, the changes which actually their market position has brought in, because customers no more visit the branches and they actually go to the e-commerce sites and other things. So for that, banks are changing, they are industrializing, and they are creating innovation. So today, in this session, we have Mr. Srikanth Parthasarathy, who is the Vice President of Product at Signzy. We will discuss with him how Signzy is helping financial services firms in their journey towards industrialization and innovation. Let me introduce Srikanth. Srikanth comes with 23 years of rich experience and has worked with the PayPal and his own startup building payment merchant and big data product. So Srikanth, you may like to add on to it, and then probably you may like to talk about how Signzy is actually helping financial services firms in their journey towards industrialization and journey towards innovation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mohan. Thanks for the introduction and thanks for the kind words. So at Signzy, I manage products. There are two product lines. We have an onboarding solution, which is essentially a workflow builder, where we help financial institutions build onboarding workflows so that they can onboard customers digitally, securely, and in volume and very fast. Now, the second part, the other product is an API product, API marketplace product, where we have a bunch of APIs from different providers. So we help fintechs, financial institutions, banks, get access to data via these APIs and provide like a single endpoint for them to do so. Now, from a product perspective, the way we look at the market is that especially with the pandemic coming in, so everybody is trying to onboard customers digitally, and but digital also comes with its own sets of challenges. People are used to really fast onboarding, so they don't want to waste time. They don't have patience. People are on devices all over the place, all kinds of devices, mobiles, laptops. They don't, they want to provide as little information as possible. And at the same time, there's a lot of competition among banks and financial institutions in terms of, how do you get them to be a customer quickly? And if you're not able to do it, in 2 minutes or 5 minutes, then there's always another competitor just around the corner who will actually take your customer. So the challenge is to be able to build safe, secure, and easy to use flows, which customers can use anywhere and any device. So our promise is that you can start anywhere, you can end anywhere, which is like you can start on a web journey, you can finish on your web, on your your mobile, on a WhatsApp, engage with customers on that, and provide this whole solution, at a very safe and secure manner, and also be able to deploy this very fast at a customer location for customers. Now, if you look at it from whatever you have mentioned, right, so which is like, how do we industrialize some of these processes? I think the challenge has been that, how do we get to scale? How do, financial institutions be able to build these solutions very fast? How do they actually, roll off, like an onboarding, like say for a credit card or for a personal loan or any financial product? How do they build these flows quickly and also deploy that? The challenges are, of course, from a regulatory perspective, compliance perspective, do you actually, capture all the required information? And, the way the central bank is and, all the other regulated entities are very strict about, the way the data is stored, the way data is captured, what kind of information is provided. You need to have very clear audit trails. So these are some of the challenges that are there. One is that there's large amounts of data coming in through different systems. Then you also need to be able to connect to different types of data sources to enhance the knowledge that you have about the customer, and at the same time ask as little as possible from customers, because the end user does not want to waste time filling in stuff in your app. So they want to just fill something, finish it, and be off quickly. So those are some of those challenges that we have, in terms of making sure that how do we build onboarding solutions that are, that cater to all of these needs also on one hand. The other interesting challenge that you also mentioned is that today, what is a financial institution and what is a fintech? The lines are very blurred. So today you have an app, like a boom barrier app, like MyGate, for instance, offering solutions, they're offering insurance on the app, they're offering investments on the app. Everybody wants to be a fintech. I mean, the trifecta of banking, investments, insurance, and loans. Everybody wants to be a super app. All of these components are fitting into different apps in one way or the other. So today, our customer base, when we say, okay, this is a financial institution or this is a financial product, is actually not really just the financial companies itself, the financial institutions themselves. It is these hundreds of thousands of other players who actually want to get into the game and provide access to financial products for their customers, be it like an HR software or something else. So for us, the map, the whole the universe of what is a fintech and what is an onboarding solution and what is a financial product, it's like expanded dramatically towards that. That's a big challenge also, because that has its related challenges in terms of the security, in terms of identifying data, identifying people, and catering to compliance and regulatory norms across board. And each of them, there might be different norms for different types of products. So you've got to be sure that the solutions that we offer, we got to be sure that the solutions that we offer cater to all of that.
See, one of the challenge which I have seen and I have mentioned in my book also is that this adaptability, that digital experience, it varies across the products. So, for example, retail banking, within retail banking, saving and FD, or between retail and SME banking, or between retail and corporate, or across the banking between insurance and banking, or within insurance, life and non-life. It actually varies. And still it requires a lot of, you can call it actually as an assistant or agent or relationship manager, even help, so that this entire process is digitized. Because still we are actually far away where customer or this entire video KYC and the data is available and we are able to onboard, or that entire digitization actually has happened in the document space, that we are able to actually get the authenticated document, etc., and we are able to. So to what extent actually you are seeing this thing? Is it what I have written is it a theoretical thing, or is it practically also this is basically that is happening?
Right. So actually, this is a very interesting question, and I think there are 2-3 ways to answer this. So one is that there are certain products which are very conducive to a purely digital lending kind of a perspective, like say, for instance, personal loans, unsecured loans. All that they require is, let's say, a PAN card, you can verify a PAN card or your Aadhaar, and like you're ready to go. Maybe some basic income checks and so on and so forth, a lot of which is digitally available today. But Like you said, a lot of other products require is assistance from human beings. Like say, so what we call as RM assisted journeys, which is like relationship manager, type of a person who assists you in onboarding to that. Couple of examples, like so we have customers, banks who use our solutions for onboarding current account customers. So these are largely relationship manager driven, so which means that there is a relationship manager. He goes to the customer and then gets the data or takes a photo of his documents, or lets him start something, and then when the user is stuck, you have somebody else assist him. The relationship manager will assist him in completing that journey. So those are so current account is, for instance, a product that requires a lot of manual intervention. But again, there are a lot of products which don't. Now, the other interesting perspective to this is that there are, if you look at tier A cities, even tier B towns, for instance, there are a lot of self onboarding journeys which are happening, which are possible. But as we go further down, that we see that there are more assisted journeys which are preferred, because customers really want help in trying to. These are not really very helpful from a perspective of somebody who's in a smaller town. It's not very easy for them to log the network or the way the applications are designed and so on and so forth. It's not very easy for them to onboard very easily. So we definitely have to provide assisted journeys as part of any solution. So there is nothing like a truly 100% solution which will apply for all kinds of financial products. There very rarely are. There are products which are ready, there are products which are not ready for that kind of a journey. So even if you see, like you said, video KYC, right? So the mandate is that there has to be an agent on the other side who has to complete that whole, help the journey was validate that the user is who he is, and do those checks and all of those things. But what we try to do is try to transparently make it easy for customers to onboard by themselves. So today people are used to great onboarding experiences where there's very little information. Like you want to sign up for a Google account, you don't need anybody to do that, nor for a Netflix account or for an Amazon account. Now, how do you actually translate that into great journeys for somebody who's buying a fintech product? How do you make it easy for them that it is that it is as easy as just using your Amazon app, right? Or trying to onboard into a product like that. So I think that's where the challenge is for people like us who are designing onboarding solutions. So how do you design it so the user experience is great, it's easy to onboard, and we intuitively figure out what is it that we should ask customers. So for instance, there are ways in which you can actually get data and pre-fill this data, like simple things that you can do to make life easier on the onboarding journey. So you look at constantly improving those kind of things. But to again go back to your question, is a truly unassisted journey, is it a theory, or is it is it real, or is it a myth? The answer is that it is both actually, because in some it is very contextual and depends on the type of product and the place where the people are and what kind of product that they are trying to buy.
So while writing my book, I did study actually that what is the most important input for AI. So what I concluded was that public data sets probably are the new data sets are probably the most important inputs for building AI. And now I somewhere read that you are talking about providing this solution in 200 jurisdictions. So one of the question is that how actually you are managing public data sets or the other data sets, and specifically in the 200 jurisdiction which you are talking about.
Sure. So I think that's a great question. So one thing what we offer is like our solutions are global. So we have customers across the world who use us to onboard their customers, whether it is individuals or businesses. A lot of countries offer, with to various degrees of availability, offered access to their company data. Let's say if we take KYB data, which is like know your business data. There's a lot of jurisdictions across the world which offer pretty detailed information about companies, whether it is Companies House in the UK or even like countries like Jamaica, which offer pretty decent data sets around their own companies. So it makes it easier for us to what we do is we work with either we go directly or we work with partners, connect to those jurisdictions and then get this data and provide it so that when somebody is trying to onboard there, we already have the data or we are able to fetch the data in real time or near real time and able to process that onboarding very quickly. Now, whether this is whether we want to truly call it a corpus is I would like to qualify that, because one is that there is a lot of public data available, let's say like company data, for instance, but then there's also a lot of consent-based data, PII data and non-PII data, which is you have to have the customer's consent for that. So let's say in India, you want to do like a like an Aadhaar, you want to fetch the Aadhaar details of a person, you have to go through the OTP process, consent-based process, or you want information about a company's GST records, that's again a consent-based flow. Similar flows are available in different countries, in different jurisdictions. And what happens is that this data is then leveraged to provide the information for a particular flow. But on the other hand, there is also like a lot of behavioral information that we can actually gather from some of these things. So like if we look at different countries, how do customers behave in those countries? How do they onboard? What kind of patterns do we see there? And we use that data to also fingerprint users to understand whether there's like a safe user, unsafe user, or this behavior is safe or unsafe, and whether we need to flag any information that is coming in. That's one side. We do a lot of fraud, forgery checks across boards. There are like a lot of ways in which you would be able to detect them, and like use that to process the onboarding itself. Going back to your question of whether there's a lot of public data available and all that. So today it is increasingly getting to be difficult for you to get individuals data. Instead, we have, like if it's companies, of course, a lot of company information is available, whether in terms of like public media sources or in terms of company information, like an ROC type of information, ROC NCA type of information. That's all anyway publicly available, and a lot of this data across jurisdictions is reasonably easy to get. But for individuals, it's that much tougher because of all kinds of privacy and consent laws.
See, another question which I got for you is actually, when we are talking about digital experience and when we are talking about innovation. So I've actually written an entire chapter on this, entire chapter on digital experience, as well as in building agile. So one of the key things is to have this agile technology where it is expandable and it can actually add horizontally and other things. So that is one. Another is, as a part of digital experiences, that you need to actually have your architecture, your application architecture created in such a way that you actually are able to replace the component, what we call it actually as an API. So how far you have made your system agile, or you support that agility into the technology, and how far it is actually configurable and flexible.
It's a very interesting question. See, today, one of the main requirements from customers and from end users is that they want very short journeys. Right? Nobody wants to wait and fill a lot of details and wait for something to happen, process, and then they want it instantly. So you want to apply for a card and you want it issued instantly, and the investment has to complete immediately. So you're opening a fixed deposit; it should be immediate. So what that does is, like, we are all constantly looking to optimize every part of a flow, every part of an onboarding flow. Is there something that is redundant? Is there something that we can do better? Is there a different way in which you could, fetch the data without asking customers, right? So can you silently do that? So whether it is existing, so like say, so you would have a lot of information, lot of the flows which are very flexible. So when you're building a flow, you'll have to keep in mind that okay, do I know this person? So let's say you are already an existing customer, then you would skip a majority of the checks and then you would go straight to just maybe validating whether this person is eligible for a particular product or not, and then you are completing that whole process. So like you are already an HDFC Bank customer, and HDFC Bank already knows about you. So all I need is your credentials or maybe your customer ID, and I know exactly how much loan to give you or what kind of product to offer you, etc. So the whole journey becomes like like a very, very short journey. But the challenge is also where if you're not an existing customer, then how do I treat you? What kind of information do I do? So there are 2-3 ways in which we actually build like configurable journeys. So for instance, you pre-fill a lot of data. So today, for instance, from PAN, you'll be able to get information about your GST, or you ask for GST number, and then from GST you get a lot of details about your publicly available information about how much have you paid on time. There's a lot of information that you can actually fetch data from. So I don't want you to fill your name and address and business number and business registered business address and so on and so forth. I'll just get it from the GST number. So that way, what you do is like you just kind of reduce the amount of time that a customer spends on filling data in your system. Also prone to errors. That's one thing. The other thing is that you constantly keep learning about what is the behavior, where are people dropping off, where are they getting stuck, and can you actually tweak the journeys so that maybe this should come later, or that, or one particular stage should come later, or can you even skip a particular stage entirely because you're seeing a lot of drop-offs at that particular stage. So those are things that are that among many other things that we look at when we constantly track journey. So this is only possible when you have like very deep analytics around the whole journeys of users. What are they doing? How are they using the thing? Where are they dropping off, etc. And the solutions that we offer that kind of customization. Like, okay, I see that this is this flow is not working, or I need to tweak this flow. Can I reroute this thing? Can I change the rule? Can I increase the threshold? Can I reduce the threshold for some of these things? So when you do all of these things, or for instance, I can actually say, okay, I'm going to retarget user here, people who are dropping off here. This is how I will do it. When you do all of those things, then you actually build very optimized journeys, and it is like very customized journeys as well. So the eventual goal, of course, the holy grail of all of these is like a very personalized journey for you. I know who you are, or what kind of person you are, what kind of onboarding you need, and then only do that particular parts of the onboarding that is required for you. So if I'm able to do that, I mean, of course, that's the holy grail, which we are all looking at getting to, where it's totally customizable by user rather than just by flow.
My question was also having from different perspectives. So when we are talking about this digital onboarding, now in digital onboarding, the complexity of a new NBFC will be different from a complexity of a, say, existing private sector bank, will be different from HDFC, and will be different from State Bank. So it actually requires 2 levels of flexibility. One is the level of agility, the technology agility which it requires, basically the technology resources which it requires to process the number of customers and transactions per second, per minute, per hour, etc. Other is the number of documents, etc. process. And third is actually the processes to be completed. So how you actually are supporting, or how, if you can talk about more about how this entire thing actually is flexible, configurable, or agile to service the customers across the different ranges. So that is what I meant by agile technology.
Right. So I think there are 2 parts to the answer to my question, to your question. One is, of course, if I were to directly answer how agile is the solution like this, then the answer would be, of course, that we have to. These flows are very flexible. So when we build a flow for an insurance company, it's going to be very different from something that we build for like a fixed deposit. And like you said, the same journey for an NBFC would be very different. Like a personal loan journey for an NBFC would be very different from a personal loan journey for, let's say, a bank. Not just because of different regulatory requirements, but also because of the way some of the interpretations of these regulations also happen. So for instance, an NBFC might be willing to take a more liberal view of what it constitutes, what is the POI, what is it really required there? I mean, like what kind of checks do I need to do to validate that this is the user, versus what a bank would say that I need to do like a CPV, a customer point verification, before I grant, before I do this, before I disburse an amount. Those are regulatory changes that would be there. But very interestingly, what we are seeing is that as new benchmarks are being set by some of these challengers in the market, whether it is in credit card issuance. So today you can get a credit card from a challenger card company, which is not really a bank. Like in a minute, under a minute, you will be able to get a credit card, or you can get a you can open a fixed deposit immediately. You can buy mutual funds super fast. Now, what this means is that it is putting a lot of pressure on incumbent organizations also to be more agile, to say that, okay, you know what, if that company can do it, so can I, and I am going to make my processes also. I'm also going to change those processes, and I'm also going to be more agile around being to responding to these companies. So today you have a mobile payment app which says, okay, yeah, you can open a fixed deposit right there, right? So which means that now everybody wants to do the same thing, right? So everybody's saying, oh, I want a journey where I can open a fixed deposit in under 30 seconds. So what our solution offers is the ability to do all of these things. So like you want a very long journey, yeah, you want a 50-step journey, you can build a 50-step journey. You want a 10-step journey, you can do a 10-step journey. You want like a 3-step journey, that is also possible. So one of the things, for instance, we've been talking to some of these banks have been like, like one number, 2 OTPs, and like, can you do a business loan? So which essentially means that, okay, so you have a PAN. From PAN, you get some details, and then you get maybe access to 2 OTPs are essentially your GST data or your tax filing data and your tax filing data. And that's that. So that is more than enough, for instance, to be able to give out a loan, whether it's secured or unsecured loan, for instance. So how do you make these things easier? And this is something that even incumbent banks, larger NBFCs are very interested in doing. Everybody wants to make life very simple for that. And from a solution perspective, I mean, we definitely have to do that. See, like earlier, when we were just doing one check, okay, for everything there is like a different API call, or for which, like, say, okay, you want to do a PAN check, okay, you go do a PAN call. You want to do some other check, you go do some other check as a separate call. But today there is more orchestration of some of these things, and customers coming back and saying, okay, can you orchestrate this for us? Or we will do the orchestration where we will just collect one set of data, or we'll collect data in one shot, do all the operations independent, separately, do it in one shot, and come back with the result to customers. So that customers don't have to wait for any response, from a bank or for whatever product that they are applying to. And that means that our product also has to, has over a period of time has dramatically evolved into making it very simple for customers to build very complex workflows, which kind of abstract this whole complexity for the end user. So the end user only sees that, okay, I'm just entering my details, and that's it. There seems to be like one OTP for something, but I do that, and at the end of it, I actually get a result, whether I'm eligible for the product or not, or whether the product has been actually issued to me or not.
See, one of the things, there are some questions which have started coming, and one of the things is that as a part of the AI thing, now, where are this AI all being used actually, specifically for the customer onboarding? Now, one is to use it for the establishing biometric and identity of a person. Other is to identify or authenticate the IDs and addresses and other things of the customer. Third is to identify or verify the documents and other things. So question which actually has come also from audience is that where all AI is being used actually, especially by your applications, if you can elaborate, that will be really good. So is it only, is it in biometric, is it identify IDs, is it documents, or is it asset and ownership?
Sure. So I think there are 3 areas where we use AI extensively. One is, of course, I'll split it into three pieces. One is the what you call as the biometrics. The second is the decisioning, and third is the augmented analytics. Now, when you look at today, of course, we do a lot of silent checks, AI-based checks on documents, on users, whether we do like say passive liveness checks, deep face authentication. We do a lot of forgery, fraud, like people trying to Photoshop documents and those things. So there's a lot of checks which happen across the information that and validate this against where is the user really coming from, fingerprinting the device, fingerprinting their location. So we use a lot of these things to kind of create a safe or unsafe profile for users. So that's as far as the user profile is concerned. We do a lot of decisioning. So there's a lot of AI-based decisioning, like what should happen next to this customer. Is this record? Is this something that you can actually is this a safe user, not a safe user? You'll have rules-based engines, but you also have AI-based decisioning, which will say, okay, this seems to be something that I need to queue to a back office, like a operations person to look at, because I think there's something wrong with this kind of a thing. But beyond that, I think what is also happening is that being able to anticipate what users are doing and redirect them to different flows and provide them, an experience which is very specific to that particular user is where we are actually heading towards. So where we are trying to build out, stuff which augments the whole user experience, the digital experience of users, and also helps them complete the journeys in the shortest possible time. And of course, making sure that all the regulatory compliance checkboxes are ticked and so on and so forth. One final thing, which is also of something that we are also looking at and which we are trying to build out, is around augmented analytics, which is that, okay, people are dropping off, people are actually, not doing something there, but what is it that I can do to, can the system suggest what kind of options that are there for me to make sure to reduce the drop-offs? So the system should be able to tell you that, okay, maybe you should, this journey, this is not very, very productive. We need to remove this step. Or it should suggest that more people are dropping off from this step because of XYZ reasons. So can the system automatically tell me and help tweak the flow parameters so that I provide like a great experience to customers? I think that's where that's probably from an onboarding perspective, that's where we are headed, and that's where we are targeting. Like making sure that this pervasive AI, but it's silent behind the scene and actually helps customers rather than like acting as barriers. I mean, this is not, the idea is not to force you into a captcha kind of mode and say, oh, click this before and then verify you. It's not like that. How do you silently do that is what we want to get. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, yes, but I don't know whether this all is impacting the work culture. So what is happening is that when we start using AI, and if we start using AI only for a limited purpose, and we are doing it and using it only at the small step of the activity, etc., then people may get into whether I'm getting a complete basically experience or not, those especially those who are assisting and other things. So there it may be impacting some work culture. Otherwise, AI actually is there to assist basically both the employees as well as to the customer. You have got any view on that? I'm just
No, that is very true. That is very true. See, what we see, for instance, are very sophisticated. There's a lot of sophisticated fraud that's happening there. Like, so today, a human eye cannot detect a lot of these things. So, and at scale. So, for instance, so AI against fraud or forgery, I mean, it's like today it's like a no-brainer. I mean, there's something that you have to do. You have no alternative, because large, if you want to process large volumes of data, you have to rely on these kind of systems for some of these things. But I think the way to look at this, or the way we look at it, is more like, okay, how do we actually help the end customer do things faster, do things better? Is there a way in which we can actually provide that level of augmentation to the whole experience that will make it easier for him to complete these journeys, right? So how do we actually make sure that customers are happy at the end, and we are able to provide them what they want in the manner they wish?
So impact on work culture will depend upon how we are actually presenting or representing this entire use of AI. AI does not actually impact the work culture. It is the way. So say, for example, if you are doing assisted video, it is basically for the better customer service for which we are actually doing it. So if it is presented as a better customer service and it is accepted by everybody as for that this is a part of my customer service, etc., then it doesn't impact. But if you say that it's a part of very small portion in the automation, etc., then it will impact the culture and it will. So it is basically the question of positioning.
Correct. Absolutely.
So another question is taking the AI algorithm thing, which I was just asking for what we are using algorithms for AI, etc. So another question is that what type of checks, data checks, and other algorithm we are using for customer onboarding, especially for BNPL type of unsecured credit lending.
Sure. So I think we do a lot of checks around. See, BNPL is, of course, any BNPL, any unsecured loan. Today, again, people we work with like hundreds of customers. So everybody has their own way of looking at data and providing the risk models for that. But typically, when we look at data, people want to look at who's the user, where are they coming from, what kind of fingerprinting can we do about the user, about the device, about where they're coming from, and also around the documents that they're providing, how true fraud, whether there's fraud, there's forgery, does it actually match the kind of behavior, does the user's behavior match the kind of behavior that other similar users have, or does it look like an anomaly because you have like a lot of automated attacks happening on systems. So those are the things that we would typically look at when doing these things. See, now when you look at actually with the actual handing out of loans themselves, people have their own credit models. People also figure out what is the level of risk that you're going to take, and how do I actually do that. Where we don't really play a lot of role there. Our focus is on just making sure that the onboarding solution that we provide is able to provide you provide customers with an experience that they can use to onboard there, and also provide you connectivity to whatever you want to do. Like you want to run your models, you want to do decisioning there. We provide hooks and interfaces that can connect to that data, those data sets, run the models, and automatically decision any onboarding requests that come in.
I think another question which is coming up is when we are using AI, it is challenging from the regulatory perspective, from the authentication and authorization from NPCI and banks perspective. See, we actually are in the financial services business. Whenever we actually are in the finance business, financial services business, in the payment business, in the transactions in credit, lending, etc., all these are highly regulated areas. These are all regulated business. So these are all driven by the central banking regulations. They are driven by the consumer regulation. They are driven by the privacy requirements, etc. And they actually are driven by the what we can call it actually as a trust, the trust which consumer actually has reposed in basically reposed in the financial services firm, or which is reposed into the business firm, etc. Now there are requirements basically for from the regulatory perspective, from privacy, from ethics perspective, and so on and so forth. Now, when we talk about AI at the level at which we are talking about AI, it is, if you look at it, if you build the model, and because I have been involved with this for last 10, 12 years in that entire AI, all the models actually, whether even if you go with the deep learning and others, all of them actually are auditable. So you can keep it, basically you can open it up and they are auditable. You can build the intermediate layers, etc., entire analytics and so on and so forth. So it is auditable, it is available, it can be audited, it can be exposed, it can be given to the regulators and so on and so forth. But so many times we actually want that these models, if they actually are part of the secret sauce, when we talk about the consumer lending or when we talk about the fraud and we don't want to expose it, etc. At that point of time, what we need to probably do is that we need to ensure that privacy and ethical and governance and other type of requirements basically, and that entire consent framework which we probably were trying to have in India, or GDPR and California privacy framework can work actually as a baseline for that, etc. That actually can be used, and and that entire basically audit trail and other things actually can be built. And there is always a concept that model can be a black box also, and still regulator will be able to accept it if we actually are engaging regulator, and we actually are giving that assurance that we are not exposing it because of that secret of that business secret, etc. But that should not be basically secret based on the privacy or at the cost of privacy, ethics, and other things. So if we actually are creating, and we are creating, we are working on that line, then we need to actually work from the beginning on our model in such a way that we actually are able to defend it from privacy, ethical, and other perspective, and keep only that secret sauce only to the extent of how am I preventing the fraud, credit, etc., to the extent of business and giving that benefit, etc. So we actually can take care of that entire thing of challenge. Srikanth, you got any other view? Would you
like just want to add one final thing, which is that we have a very progressive regulator in RBI in India, and they're open to a lot of things which are like we're seeing a lot of countries which are lagging behind in terms of what digitally we can do in India. So that way, our regulator has been pretty good in understanding what the needs of the market are and being able to support a lot of these things that we are doing. But yeah, I think we are kind of run to the end of our session, and so really thanks for your time.
₹100 में Bitcoin trading
पॉसिबल है,
impossible.
लगी शर्त और हारा तो It's possible on CoinSwitch Kuber. Download करो और Bitcoin में trading start. CoinSwitch Kuber, सिक्का चमकेगा.
Cryptocurrency is an unregulated digital asset, not a legal tender, and subject to market risks and price fluctuation risks.
Where there is life, there is hope, there is meaning. But life has its downs as much as its ups. Life is about challenges. Life is about opportunities. Time for joy, time for celebration, and time to introspect. Thankfully, in every one of life's moments, and even beyond life itself, there's LIC. Where there is life, there's always LIC. Zindagi ke saath bhi, zindagi ke baad bhi.